Question 1. Benchmark analysis indicates that a new Xpages application is being developed to streamline customer order processing within an existing IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 environment. Which of the following approaches best addresses the potential impacts of this new application on the current infrastructure, data, and user base? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the application's effects on server performance, data integrity, user workflows, and security protocols, and develop a phased rollout plan with adequate user training and support. Option B. Implement the Xpages application immediately to all users to gather real-time feedback and make adjustments as issues arise, without prior impact analysis. Option C. Focus the impact assessment solely on the Xpages code and its direct integration points with the Domino database, assuming existing infrastructure can handle the load. Option D. Prioritize the technical deployment of the Xpages application to the Domino server and address any performance issues or user feedback only after the application is live. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the application's effects on server performance, data integrity, user workflows, and security protocols, and develop a phased rollout plan with adequate user training and support. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing the impact of a new Xpages application on existing Domino infrastructure and user workflows. The challenge lies in balancing the benefits of the new application with the potential disruptions and resource implications. Careful judgment is required to ensure a smooth transition, minimize negative impacts, and maximize the value of the Xpages application. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically addresses potential impacts across various domains. By conducting a thorough impact assessment that considers technical infrastructure, data integrity, user training, and security, the team proactively identifies risks and develops mitigation strategies. This aligns with the principles of responsible application development and deployment, ensuring that the new application integrates effectively without compromising existing systems or user productivity. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining system stability and user adoption, which are key performance indicators in any IT project. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical implementation of the Xpages application, without considering its broader impact, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach neglects the responsibility to ensure the application's compatibility with the existing Domino environment, potentially leading to performance degradation, data corruption, or security vulnerabilities. This failure to conduct a comprehensive impact assessment violates the implicit ethical obligation to deliver robust and reliable solutions. Furthermore, ignoring user training and support can lead to decreased productivity and user dissatisfaction, which can have business repercussions and reflect poorly on the development team's professionalism. Overlooking security implications during the impact assessment is a direct violation of data protection principles and could expose sensitive information, leading to regulatory penalties and reputational damage. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a phased approach to impact assessment. First, define the scope of the assessment, identifying all relevant areas of impact: technical, operational, user, security. Second, gather information through stakeholder consultations, system analysis, and documentation review. Third, analyze the gathered information to identify potential risks and opportunities. Fourth, prioritize identified impacts based on their severity and likelihood. Fifth, develop mitigation and enhancement strategies. Finally, document the findings and recommendations, and establish a plan for monitoring and review post-implementation. This structured approach ensures that all critical aspects are considered, leading to a well-informed decision-making process. Question 2. The monitoring system demonstrates that a specific Xpage application, designed to display customer order history, is experiencing significant performance degradation when users attempt to view orders placed within the last year. Analysis of the Xpage code reveals that a single data source is retrieving all order records from the underlying Domino database, and then client-side JavaScript is being used to filter and sort these records based on the date range selected by the user. Which of the following approaches would represent the most professionally sound and efficient solution for improving the application's performance? Option A. Remove all date filtering functionality from the Xpage and instruct users to manually sort through the entire dataset. Option B. Modify the Domino view or database query used by the Xpage data source to pre-filter and sort the order records by date before they are retrieved by the Xpage. Option C. Increase the client's available RAM and browser cache size to accommodate the larger dataset being processed. Option D. Implement a client-side JavaScript library that asynchronously fetches all order records in chunks and then performs filtering and sorting. Correct answer is B. Modify the Domino view or database query used by the Xpage data source to pre-filter and sort the order records by date before they are retrieved by the Xpage. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a developer to balance the need for efficient data retrieval and presentation within an Xpages application against the potential for performance degradation and user experience issues. The core of the challenge lies in understanding how to effectively manage data sources and their interaction with the user interface, particularly when dealing with potentially large datasets or complex relationships. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both technically sound and adheres to best practices for application development, ensuring scalability and maintainability. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and optimized method for data retrieval. By leveraging the capabilities of the data source, e.g., a Domino view or a custom query, to pre-filter and sort data before it is brought into the Xpage context, the application minimizes the amount of data that needs to be processed by the Xpage itself. This leads to faster load times, reduced memory consumption on the server and client, and a more responsive user interface. This aligns with general principles of efficient application design and the specific performance considerations inherent in Xpage's development, ensuring a robust and user-friendly application. An incorrect approach that involves fetching all data from a source and then filtering it within the Xpage code is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of understanding of data processing efficiency. It places an undue burden on the Xpage rendering engine and the client-side JavaScript, leading to significant performance bottlenecks, especially as the data volume increases. This can result in timeouts, unresponsiveness, and a poor user experience, directly contradicting the goal of creating effective applications. Furthermore, it demonstrates a failure to apply fundamental principles of data management and application optimization, which are critical for professional software development. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on client-side JavaScript to fetch and manipulate data after the initial page load without proper pagination or lazy loading, also represents a professional failure. While client-side manipulation can be useful for certain interactive elements, using it as the primary method for handling large datasets without considering server-side optimization or efficient data transfer mechanisms leads to excessive client-side processing, increased network traffic, and potential browser performance issues. This approach neglects the server's role in data processing and efficient delivery, leading to an unbalanced and inefficient application architecture. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the data source's capabilities, the expected data volume, and the user's interaction patterns. Before implementing any data retrieval or display mechanism, developers should ask, how can I get the data to the user in the most efficient way possible, minimizing processing on both the server and client? This involves considering server-side filtering, sorting, and aggregation, as well as client-side techniques like pagination, lazy loading, and efficient data binding. The goal is to offload as much processing as possible to the most appropriate layer, ensuring a performant and scalable application. Question 3. Which approach would be most effective for ensuring that complex view in an IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 Xpages application displays its data completely and efficiently upon user interaction, without requiring manual refresh by the user? Option A. Utilize client-side JavaScript to dynamically fetch and append view data to the existing DOM after the initial page load. Option B. Embed extensive server-side JavaScript expressions directly within the Xpage markup to aggregate and display view data. Option C. Revert to using traditional Notes client views for data display to ensure data completeness. Option D. Implement server-side JavaScript within the onView refresh event to fetch and prepare the view data before rendering. The correct answer is D. Implement server-side JavaScript within the onViewRefresh event to fetch and prepare the view data before rendering. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance application performance with data integrity and user experience within the constraints of an existing IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 environment. The developer must consider the implications of their chosen method on the overall stability and responsiveness of the application, especially when dealing with potentially large datasets or complex user interactions. Careful judgment is required to select a technique that is both effective and adheres to best practices for Xpages development. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it leverages the inherent capabilities of Xpages for efficient data retrieval and rendering. By utilizing server-side JavaScript within the onViewRefresh event, the developer can ensure that data is fetched and processed before the view is presented to the user. This minimizes the perceived latency and avoids potential race conditions or incomplete data displays that could occur with client-side manipulation. This method aligns with the principles of robust application design, ensuring data consistency and a predictable user experience, which are implicitly expected in professional software development. An incorrect approach that relies solely on client-side JavaScript to dynamically update view data after initial rendering would be professionally unacceptable. This is because it can lead to a fragmented user experience where data appears to load in stages, potentially causing visual glitches or incomplete information. From a regulatory or ethical standpoint, while not directly violating a specific law in this context, it fails to meet the implicit professional standard of delivering a polished and reliable application. Such an approach could also inadvertently expose vulnerabilities if not meticulously secured, though the primary failure is in user experience and application robustness. Another incorrect approach, attempting to perform complex data aggregation directly within the Xpage markup using extensive SSJS expressions, would be professionally unsound. This can lead to unmanageable code, significantly degrade page load times, and make debugging extremely difficult. Ethically, it represents a failure to adhere to principles of maintainable and efficient coding, which are foundational to professional software engineering. The lack of clear separation of concerns makes the application brittle and prone to errors. A further incorrect approach, opting to bypass Xpages entirely and revert to traditional Notes client views for data display, would be professionally inappropriate in the context of an Xpages application. This negates the benefits of the Xpages framework, such as enhanced UI capabilities and integration with web technologies. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to the chosen development platform and fails to deliver the modern user experience that Xpages is designed to provide. This approach would be considered a regression and a failure to meet the project's objectives. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Xpages lifecycle, the capabilities of server-side and client-side JavaScript, and the specific requirements of the application. Developers should prioritize solutions that offer a good balance of performance, maintainability, and user experience. Evaluating the potential impact of each technique on data integrity and application stability is crucial. Consulting documentation and best practice guides for Xpages development is also a key step in ensuring a robust and professional outcome. Question 4. The review process indicates that a critical Xpages application developed for IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 is experiencing performance issues related to user access control checks. The application needs to dynamically restrict access to certain views and data based on user roles. The development team is considering several approaches to implement this, aiming for both efficiency and robust security. Which of the following approaches best addresses the need for dynamic access control while adhering to secure development practices within the IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 environment? Option A. Dynamically retrieve and apply user roles and permissions from the Domino database's access control list, ACL, within the Xpages application's managed beans or SSJS code to control UI rendering and data access. Option B. Store user roles and associated permissions in a separate view within the application's NSF database and query this view from Xpages to determine access rights. Option C. Embed database administrator credentials directly within the Xpages application's configuration files or code to grant elevated privileges for all users, simplifying access logic. Option D. Implement a custom session management system using client-side JavaScript to store and validate user roles, bypassing Domino's native security mechanisms. The correct answer is A. Dynamically retrieve and apply user roles and permissions from the Domino database's access control list, ACL, within the Xpages application's managed beans or SSJS code to control UI rendering and data access. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing performance optimization with data integrity and security, particularly when dealing with sensitive information. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most robust and compliant method for handling user authentication and authorization within an Xpages application, ensuring that access controls are not only effective, but also align with established best practices for data security and application governance. The need to avoid hard-coding credentials or relying on insecure session management techniques is paramount. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it leverages the built-in security features of IBM Lotus notes and Domino, specifically the security context provided by the Xpages runtime and the underlying NSF database security. By utilizing the authenticated user's identity and their associated access control list, ACL, permissions within the Domino database, the application dynamically enforces access. This method is inherently more secure and maintainable than embedding credentials or using less robust session management. It adheres to the principle of least privilege and ensures that security is managed centrally within the Domino environment, which is a core tenet of secure application development on the platform. An incorrect approach that involves hard-coding database credentials within the Xpages application code is a significant security failure. This practice exposes sensitive credentials, making them vulnerable to unauthorized access if the application code is compromised. It violates fundamental security principles and creates a maintenance nightmare, as credentials would need to be updated across all instances of the application if they change. Another incorrect approach, relying on custom session tokens without proper validation and expiration, introduces vulnerabilities. These tokens are not securely generated, transmitted, and managed. They can be intercepted or exploited, leading to unauthorized access. This bypasses the robust security mechanisms provided by Domino and increases the attack surface of the application. A third incorrect approach, storing user roles and permissions directly within the Xpages application's view or document scope without leveraging Domino's ACL, is also problematic. While it might seem like a way to manage access, it duplicates security information and creates potential inconsistencies. More importantly, it bypasses the native security enforcement of the Domino database, which is designed to be the authoritative source for access control. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Xpages and Domino security model. Developers should prioritize using the platform's native security features for authentication and authorization. When considering performance optimizations, security should never be compromised. A risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential vulnerabilities, and solutions should be chosen that align with industry best practices for secure application development and data protection. Regular security reviews and adherence to the principle of least privilege are essential. Question 5. The analysis reveals that a developer is tasked with creating an Xpages application to manage user profiles, which includes storing sensitive personal information such as social security numbers and financial details. The application needs to allow users to view and edit their own profiles, while administrators should have the ability to view all profiles. Developer is considering different methods for storing and securing this sensitive data within the Domino 8.5 environment. Which of the following approaches best balances functionality with the imperative of data protection and secure access? Option A. Store sensitive PII in encrypted fields within the Domino database and implement role-based access control in Xpages to differentiate between user and administrator privileges. Option B. Store sensitive PII in plain text fields within the Domino database and grant all authenticated users read access to all profile fields. Option C. Store sensitive PII in a separate, unencrypted SQL database accessible via a direct connection from the Xpages application without any specific access controls. Option D. Store all sensitive PII in plain text fields within the Domino database and rely on client-side JavaScript validation to prevent unauthorized viewing. The correct answer is A. Store sensitive PII in encrypted fields within the Domino database and implement role-based access control in Xpages to differentiate between user and administrator privileges. Explanation: the analysis reveals a common challenge in Xpages development: managing sensitive user data within a web application context. The scenario presents a developer needing to store and retrieve personally identifiable information, PI, for user profiles. The core professional challenge lies in balancing the need for data accessibility for application functionality with the stringent requirements for data privacy and security, especially when dealing with user-specific details. This requires careful consideration of how data is stored, accessed, and protected, adhering to best practices and potential regulatory considerations, even if specific regulations are not explicitly detailed in the exam scope. The underlying principles of data protection are paramount. Correct approach involves leveraging the built-in security features of Domino and Xpages, specifically focusing on secure data storage and controlled access. Using encrypted fields within the Domino database for sensitive PII, combined with role-based access control RBAC, implemented through Domino groups and Xpages security contexts, ensures that only authorized users and application components can access or modify this data. This aligns with the principle of least privilege and data minimization, fundamental to professional data handling. The Xpages security features, such as the XP, this, ACL property or programmatic checks within the SSJS or Java code, are crucial for enforcing these access policies at the application layer, providing a robust defense against unauthorized access. An incorrect approach would be to store PII in plain text fields. This represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it exposes sensitive user data to unauthorized access, violating fundamental principles of data privacy and potentially leading to data breaches. Such a practice is professionally unacceptable as it demonstrates a disregard for user confidentiality and security. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on client-side JavaScript for data validation and access control. While client-side validation is useful for user experience, it is inherently insecure as it can be bypassed by malicious users. Relying on it for sensitive data access control is a critical security and ethical lapse, as it provides a false sense of security and leaves the data vulnerable. A third incorrect approach would be to store PII in a separate, unencrypted database without proper access controls. This creates a single point of failure and increases the risk of data exposure. It fails to implement layered security and demonstrates a lack of understanding of secure data management practices. The professional reasoning process for such situations involves a risk-based approach. First, identify the sensitive data elements. Second, determine the required access levels for each data element. Third, evaluate the available security mechanisms within the development platform, Domino and Xpages in this case, and select those that provide the strongest protection. Fourth, implement a layered security strategy, combining database-level security, application-level security, and secure coding practices. Finally, regularly review and audit security configurations to ensure ongoing compliance and effectiveness. Question 6. The control framework reveals a requirement to implement a new user profile management feature in an existing IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 application using Xpages. This feature must allow users to update their contact information, including email addresses and phone numbers, while ensuring that only authorized personnel can view or modify certain sensitive fields, and that all data modifications are logged for auditing purposes. The developer is considering different Xpages components and configurations to achieve this. Which of the following approaches best adheres to secure development practices and the principles of data integrity and auditability within the Xpages and Domino environment? Option A. Create an Xpage that displays all user profile data in read-only mode and provides a separate link to a legacy Notes client form for editing, assuming the Notes client's built-in security is sufficient for all data modifications. Option B. Utilize a standard Xpage with input components bound directly to the underlying Domino document fields, implementing client-side JavaScript validation for all fields, and relying on the default Domino ACL for access control. Option C. Develop a custom Xpage that uses the Xpage data source to access the Domino document, employing server-side validation logic within computed fields and SSJS event handlers to enforce data integrity and access restrictions, and configuring Domino document security to enable field-level encryption for sensitive data. Option D. Implement the feature using a simple HTML form embedded within an Xpage, submitting data directly to a Lotus script agent that performs all validation and updates the Domino document, with no specific logging mechanism beyond Domino's standard replication logs. The correct answer is B. Utilize a standard Xpage with input components bound directly to the underlying Domino document fields, implementing client-side JavaScript validation for all fields, and relying on the default Domino ACL for access control. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid application development and the need for robust security and data integrity, especially within the context of IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 applications. The developer is tasked with implementing a feature that requires handling sensitive user data, necessitating a careful balance between functionality and compliance with established security protocols and best practices. The professional challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate Xpages component and configuration to achieve the desired outcome without introducing vulnerabilities or violating data privacy principles. The correct approach involves leveraging the built-in security features of Xpages and Domino, specifically by utilizing the appropriate data access controls and validation mechanisms provided by the platform. This aligns with the principles of secure development and data protection, ensuring that sensitive information is handled responsibly and in accordance with the implicit regulatory expectations of data handling within enterprise applications. By choosing components and configurations that enforce access control and data validation at the server or component level, the developer upholds the integrity and confidentiality of user data, which is a cornerstone of professional practice in application development. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately implements security controls, such as directly exposing sensitive data without proper authorization checks or relying solely on client-side validation, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to unauthorized data access, data breaches, and noncompliance with data protection regulations. Even if not explicitly stated in the exam's jurisdiction, the principles of responsible data handling are universally expected. Relying on less secure methods or components that do not enforce server-side validation or access control undermines the trust placed in the application and the developer. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the application's requirements, the sensitivity of the data being handled, and the available Xpages and Domino features for security and data management. Developers should prioritize solutions that offer server-side validation, robust access control, and adherence to the principle of least privilege. Before implementing any feature, a risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential vulnerabilities and ensure that the chosen approach mitigates these risks effectively. Consulting documentation and adhering to established security best practices for Xpages and Domino development are crucial steps in this decision-making process. Question 7. The risk matrix shows that implementing the proposed Xpages feature to allow direct user uploads of external documents into a Lotus Notes database introduces a moderate risk of unauthorized data access and potential malware injection into the Domino environment. The development team has indicated that the feature is technically feasible and would significantly enhance user workflow efficiency. What is the most professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Defer the implementation of this feature indefinitely due to the identified risks, prioritizing only features with zero security implications. Option B. Implement the feature with minimal security considerations, relying on the existing Domino server security settings to inherently protect against potential threats. Option C. Proceed with implementing the feature after developing and documenting a comprehensive security mitigation plan, including input validation, anti-malware scanning for uploaded files, and enhanced access controls for the upload directory within the Domino database. Option D. Implement the feature immediately to capitalize on the workflow efficiency gains and address any security concerns that arise after deployment. Correct answer is C. Proceed with implementing the feature after developing and documenting a comprehensive security mitigation plan, including input validation, anti-malware scanning for uploaded files, and enhanced access controls for the upload directory within the Domino database. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in application development where a new feature, while technically feasible and potentially beneficial, introduces new security vulnerabilities. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for innovation and functionality with the imperative to protect sensitive user data and maintain system integrity, especially within the context of IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8. 5 applications which may have established security protocols. Careful judgment is required to assess the actual risk versus the perceived benefit. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, documented risk assessment and mitigation strategy before proceeding with implementation. This aligns with general principles of secure software development and good governance, which mandate that potential security implications are identified, analyzed, and addressed proactively. In the context of IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8. 5. This would involve understanding how the Xpages application interacts with the Domino security model, data access controls, and potential exposure points. Implementing a robust security review process, including penetration testing and code audits, ensures that the application adheres to established security standards and minimizes the likelihood of data breaches or unauthorized access. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining user trust and compliance with any applicable data protection regulations. Even if not explicitly stated in the exam's jurisdiction, the underlying principles of data security are universal. An incorrect approach that proceeds without a formal risk assessment fails to uphold professional responsibility. It demonstrates a disregard for potential security vulnerabilities, which could lead to data breaches, unauthorized access, or system compromise. This directly contravenes the ethical obligation to develop secure and reliable applications. Implementing the feature without considering the security implications of the Xpages code interacting with Domino's security mechanisms, such as ACLs or database encryption, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It exposes the organization and its users to undue risk. Another incorrect approach, which involves implementing the feature and then addressing security issues reactively, is equally problematic. This move fast and break things mentality is antithetical to secure development. It implies that security is an afterthought, rather than an integral part of the development lifecycle. This reactive posture significantly increases the likelihood of a security incident occurring before vulnerabilities are discovered and patched, leading to potential reputational damage and financial loss. It also suggests a lack of foresight and a failure to adhere to best practices in application security. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the proposed change and its potential impact on the existing application and its security posture. 2. Conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, considering both technical vulnerabilities and business impact. This should involve stakeholders from development, security, and business units. 3. Develop a mitigation plan for identified risks, which may include code modifications, configuration changes, or additional security controls. 4. Obtain formal approval for the implementation based on the risk assessment and mitigation plan. 5. Implement the change with rigorous testing, including security testing. 6. Monitor the application post-implementation for any emergent security issues. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, risks are managed, and the application is developed and maintained in a secure and responsible manner. Question 8. During the evaluation of a critical Lotus Notes application built with Xpages that handles sensitive customer financial data, a developer proposes implementing security primarily through the database's access control list, ACL settings, granting broad read access to a large group of internal users. The developer believes this is sufficient because the Xpages interface will then be used to hide specific sensitive fields from most users. What is the most professionally sound approach to securing this application, considering the potential for data exposure and the need for granular control? Option A. Implement a layered security approach, utilizing both granular database ACLs that enforce the principle of least privilege for database access and Xpages security context to restrict access to specific data fields and components based on user roles. Option B. Rely solely on the database ACL to grant broad read access to all internal users, assuming the Xpages interface will effectively hide sensitive fields and prevent unauthorized viewing. Option C. Focus exclusively on securing the Xpages components and code, assuming that if the Xpages interface prevents access to sensitive fields, the underlying database security is less critical. Option D. Configure the database ACL with very restrictive settings, denying access to most users, and then grant specific Xpages components access to data, even if it means overgranting permissions within the Xpages code itself to simplify development. The correct answer is A. Implement a layered security approach, utilizing both granular database ACLs that enforce the principle of least privilege for database access and Xpages security contexts to restrict access to specific data fields and components based on user roles. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent complexity of managing data security and user access within a distributed application environment like Lotus Notes and Domino. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for robust security measures with the practical requirements of application usability and developer efficiency. Developers must navigate the intricate web of ACLs, database properties, and Xpages security contexts to ensure that sensitive data is protected, while allowing authorized users and developers the necessary access. The exam's focus on Xpages and advanced techniques implies a need for a deep understanding of how these technologies interact with the underlying Domino security model. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a layered security strategy that aligns with the principles of least privilege and defense in depth. By leveraging Xpages security context to restrict access to sensitive data fields and implementing granular ACL settings at the database level, developers create a robust barrier against unauthorized access. This approach is justified by the need to comply with general data protection principles, which, while not explicitly tied to a specific jurisdiction in this exam's context, are universally recognized as essential for responsible application development. The emphasis on understanding the security implications of Xpages code and Domino configuration ensures that the application is not only functional but also secure by design. An incorrect approach that relies solely on broad database-level ACLs without considering Xpages security contexts is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of understanding of how Xpages can bypass or override certain database-level restrictions if not properly configured. It creates a significant security vulnerability, potentially exposing sensitive data to users who should not have access, violating the principle of least privilege. Another incorrect approach, focusing exclusively on Xpages security without adequately configuring database ACLs, is also flawed. This can lead to unauthorized users gaining access to the database itself, even if specific data fields are protected within Xpages. This oversight undermines the foundational security of the application and can lead to data breaches. A third incorrect approach, neglecting to test security configurations thoroughly, is a critical professional failing. Inadequate testing means potential vulnerabilities remain undiscovered, leaving the application exposed to exploitation and potentially leading to significant data loss or compromise. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of security requirements at multiple levels: the database, the application components, including Xpages, and individual user roles. Developers should always adopt a security-first mindset, considering potential threats and vulnerabilities throughout the development lifecycle. This includes understanding the specific security features of Lotus Notes and Domino, as well as the security implications of Xpages code. Thorough testing, including penetration testing and security audits, is crucial to validate the effectiveness of implemented security measures. Question 9. System analysis indicates that a critical requirement for an IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 application built with Xpages is to display customer order history, but only allowing sales representatives to see orders they are assigned to, while managers can see all orders within their region. Which of the following approaches best ensures secure and efficient data filtering based on user roles and responsibilities within the Xpages framework? Option A. Use client-side JavaScript within the Xpage to iterate through the retrieved order history and hide rows that do not match the user's role or region. Option B. relies solely on the Domino Database Access Control List, ACL, to restrict access to different views of the order history, assuming the ACL will prevent unauthorized viewing. Option C. Embed conditional rendering logic directly within the repeat control that displays the order history, checking the user's role and region for each individual order record. Option D. Implement server-side JavaScript within the data source's computed properties to dynamically filter the order history based on the logged-in user's role and assigned region. The correct answer is D. Implement server-side JavaScript within the data source's computed properties to dynamically filter the order history based on the logged-in user's role and assigned region. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in Xpages development, where developers must balance the need for efficient data retrieval with the security and privacy implications of accessing sensitive information. The challenge lies in determining the most appropriate method to filter data based on the logged-in user's role, ensuring that only authorized individuals can view specific records. This requires a deep understanding of Xpages' security features, data access controls, and the potential for data leakage if not implemented correctly. The professional challenge is to select a method that is both technically sound and compliant with data access policies, which are often implicitly or explicitly governed by internal company guidelines and potentially broader data protection regulations. Though for this exam, we focus solely on the technical framework provided by the Xpages and Domino environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging the capabilities of the Xpages security model and data access controls within the Domino environment. Specifically, using a server-side script, like SSJS within a computed field or a computed property of a data source, to check the user's role and conditionally filter the data source is the most robust and secure method. This ensures that the filtering logic is executed on the server, preventing any client-side manipulation or exposure of unauthorized data. By binding the filtering logic to the data source itself, the application consistently enforces access restrictions across all views and components that interact with that data. This aligns with best practices for data security and access control, ensuring that data is only presented to users who are authorized to see it, based on their assigned roles within the Domino application. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to rely solely on client-side JavaScript within an Xpage to hide or filter data after it has been retrieved. This is a significant security vulnerability because the data is still sent to the client, and the filtering logic can be bypassed by a determined user. This failure to enforce access control at the server level is a direct contravention of secure application design principles. Another incorrect approach would be to embed user role checks directly within the presentation layer, e.g., within a repeat controls rendered property, without a corresponding server-side data source filter. While this might visually hide data, the underlying data is still accessible to the user's session, posing a risk of data exposure. This approach is superficial and does not provide true data segregation. A third incorrect approach would be to assume that the underlying Domino database ACL alone is sufficient to protect sensitive data within an Xpage application without explicit application-level filtering. While the ACL controls database access, it does not granularly control access to specific records or fields within an application's UI, especially when dealing with role-based data visibility within the application's logic. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this by first understanding the data sensitivity and the required access levels for different user roles. The primary decision-making framework should prioritize server-side enforcement of security and data access. This involves 1. Identifying the data that needs to be secured. 2. Defining the user roles and their corresponding access permissions. 3. Selecting Xpages and Domino features that allow for server-side filtering and authorization, e.g., computed fields, computed properties of data sources, server-side SSJS. 4. Implementing the filtering logic in a way that is integrated with the data source to ensure consistent enforcement. 5. Thoroughly testing the implementation to verify that unauthorized users cannot access restricted data. This systematic approach ensures that security is built into the application from the ground up, rather than being an afterthought. Question 10. Stakeholder feedback indicates that a new feature, crucial for immediate user adoption, has been proposed for an Xpages application. The development team has raised concerns that the proposed implementation method, while quick, will introduce significant technical debt and complicate future maintenance. Business users are pressing for the feature's immediate release. How should the development lead best address this situation? Option A. Proceed with the implementation as requested by the business users to ensure rapid delivery, deferring any technical debt concerns to a later, unspecified time. Option B. Schedule a joint meeting with business stakeholders and the development team to discuss the technical concerns. Explore alternative Xpages implementation strategies that balance immediate needs with long-term maintainability, and collaboratively agree on a path forward, potentially including a phased approach. Option C. Initiate a complete redesign of the relevant application modules to accommodate the new feature, prioritizing technical purity over immediate delivery timelines. Option D. Inform the business stakeholders that the feature cannot be implemented as requested due to technical limitations and suggest they reconsider their requirements. The correct answer is B. Schedule a joint meeting with business stakeholders and the development team to discuss the technical concerns. Explore alternative Xpages implementation strategies that balance immediate needs with long-term maintainability, and collaboratively agree on a path forward, potentially including a phased approach. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development where differing stakeholder priorities can lead to conflicting requirements. The core tension lies between the immediate need for a functional feature, driven by business users, and the long-term implications of technical debt and maintainability, driven by the development team. The professional challenge is to balance these competing interests while adhering to established development best practices and the implicit understanding of delivering a robust, scalable application within the scope of the C2040-986. Exams focus on Xpages and advanced techniques. Ignoring the technical team's concerns risks creating an application that is difficult to update, debug, and extend, ultimately costing more in the long run. Conversely, completely dismissing the business user's immediate needs could lead to dissatisfaction and a perception of the development team being unresponsive. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured discussion and collaborative problem-solving session. This aligns with professional best practices in software development, emphasizing communication, transparency, and iterative improvement. By engaging both the business stakeholders and the technical team, the goal is to understand the underlying business need for the feature and explore alternative Xpages implementation strategies that might satisfy the immediate requirement without introducing significant technical debt. This could involve identifying a simpler, albeit less sophisticated, initial implementation that can be refactored later, or exploring existing Xpages components or patterns that can be leveraged. This approach fosters trust, ensures that technical considerations are not overlooked, and leads to a more sustainable solution. It reflects the principles of agile development methodologies, which are often implicitly or explicitly part of advanced application development training. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the feature immediately without addressing the technical team's concerns represents a failure to uphold professional responsibility for application quality and maintainability. This approach introduces technical debt, making future development more complex and costly. It also signals a disregard for the expertise of the development team, potentially leading to decreased morale and a less collaborative environment. From a regulatory or guideline perspective, within the context of a professional exam focused on best practices, this is a failure to adhere to principles of sound engineering and responsible development. Prioritizing the technical team's concerns to the complete exclusion of the business stakeholders' immediate needs is also professionally unsound. While technical excellence is important, applications are built to serve business objectives. Completely ignoring user-facing requirements, even if technically challenging, can lead to a product that is technically perfect but functionally irrelevant or unadopted. This approach demonstrates a lack of business acumen and an inability to translate technical solutions into business value, which is a critical aspect of professional application development. Suggesting a complete redesign of the application to accommodate the feature, without a thorough analysis of the impact and necessity, is an overreaction. This approach can lead to scope creep, significant delays, and increased costs, potentially derailing the project entirely. It fails to demonstrate the professional judgment required to find the most efficient and effective solution, instead opting for a potentially disruptive and unnecessary overhaul. This can be seen as a failure to manage project resources effectively and to make informed decisions based on a balanced assessment of technical feasibility and business impact. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes open communication and collaborative problem-solving. When faced with conflicting stakeholder requirements, the first step is to facilitate a meeting where all parties can articulate their needs and concerns. This should be followed by a technical assessment of the proposed feature, identifying potential challenges, and exploring alternative implementation strategies. The goal is to find a solution that balances immediate business needs with long-term technical sustainability. This involves understanding the why behind each requirement and seeking common ground. If a compromise is necessary, it should be clearly documented, with agreed-upon timelines for future refactoring or enhancements. This iterative and communicative approach ensures that the application remains functional, maintainable, and aligned with business objectives. Question 11. Regulatory review indicates that a critical Lotus Note/Domino 8.5 application developed with Xpages handles sensitive customer financial data. The application needs to restrict access to certain views and data entry forms based on user roles, e.g., sales representative, account manager, auditor. Developers are considering different strategies to implement these access controls. Which approach best balances security, maintainability, and adherence to advanced application development principles? Option A. Apply only the default Domino database access control list, ACL, to the application database, without any further Xpages-specific security configurations. Option B. Rely solely on operating system-level file permissions to restrict access to the Domino database files, assuming this will indirectly control application access. Option C. Implement role-based access control within the Xpages application itself, leveraging Domino's security features and Xpages' programmatic capabilities to define granular access to specific components and data based on user roles. Option D. Hardcode specific user ID and their associated permissions directly within the Xpage code and any associated Lotus script agents. The correct answer is C. Implement role-based access control within the Xpages application itself, leveraging Domino's security features and Xpages' programmatic capabilities to define granular access to specific components and data based on user roles. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in managing data security and user access within a Lotus Note/Domino 8.5 application, specifically concerning the implementation of advanced techniques like Xpages. The challenge lies in balancing the need for robust security measures with the practical requirements of application usability and developer efficiency, all while adhering to the implicit regulatory and compliance expectations inherent in enterprise application development, even if not explicitly stated as a specific jurisdiction's law for this exam. The exam's focus on advanced techniques implies a need for sophisticated solutions that go beyond basic security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a layered security model that leverages the inherent capabilities of Domino and Xpages for granular control. By implementing role-based access control, RBAC, at the application level, and then augmenting it with specific Xpage security configurations, e.g., controlling access to specific components or data views based on user roles or attributes. It ensures that only authorized users can access sensitive information or perform specific actions. This aligns with general principles of data protection and least privilege, which are foundational to secure application development. The use of Domino's built-in security features, combined with Xpages' programmatic control, offers a comprehensive and manageable solution. An incorrect approach that relies solely on operating system-level permissions for data access would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to leverage the application-specific security features of Domino and Xpages, leading to a less granular and potentially more complex management overhead. It also bypasses the application's own security logic, creating a security gap where users might gain access to data through the file system that they should not have within the application context. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it undermines the intended security posture of the application. Another incorrect approach that involves hard-coding user credentials or specific user ID within the Xpage code or Lotus script agents is also professionally unacceptable. This is a severe security vulnerability, as it exposes sensitive credentials and makes the application extremely difficult to maintain and update. Any change in user roles or access requirements would necessitate code modification, increasing the risk of errors and security breaches. This directly violates principles of secure coding and data protection, creating an unacceptable risk of unauthorized access and data compromise. A third incorrect approach that neglects to implement any form of access control beyond the default Domino database ACL would be insufficient. While the database ACL provides a baseline level of security, it is often too broad for the nuanced access requirements of modern applications, especially those built with Xpages. Failing to implement more granular, application-specific security measures leaves the application vulnerable to unauthorized access to specific data or functionalities within the database, which is a failure to meet the expected security standards for advanced application development. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the application's functional requirements and the sensitivity of the data it handles. Developers should first identify the different user roles and their corresponding access needs. Then, they should evaluate the security features provided by the platform Domino and the development framework Xpages to determine the most effective and efficient way to implement these access controls. This involves considering RBAC, programmatic security within Xpages, and secure coding practices. The goal is to create a secure, maintainable, and user-friendly application that adheres to best practices in data protection. Question 12. The efficiency study reveals that a critical Xpages application is experiencing significant delays in loading complex views and displaying aggregated data, impacting user productivity. The development team is tasked with improving the application's responsiveness without compromising data security or introducing new vulnerabilities. They are considering several strategies for optimizing data retrieval and rendering. Which of the following approaches best addresses the efficiency concerns while adhering to professional development best practices for Xpages applications? Option A. Utilize client-side JavaScript within the onClient load event to fetch all required data and perform all data aggregation and rendering logic directly in the browser. Option B. Implement server-side JavaScript within the before-page load event to prefetch and process all necessary data before the page is rendered to the client. Option C. Design the page to fetch data incrementally through multiple, independent AJAX calls initiated by individual UI components as they become visible or interactable. Option D. Fetch a large initial dataset on page load and then rely heavily on client-side JavaScript to filter, sort, and aggregate this data for display. The correct answer is B. Implement server-side JavaScript within the before-page load event to prefetch and process all necessary data before the page is rendered to the client. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a need to optimize the data retrieval and rendering process within an Xpages application. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing performance gains with the integrity and security of the data being accessed and displayed. Developers must consider how different data access methods impact user experience, application responsiveness, and adherence to any implicit or explicit data handling policies that might be in place, even if not explicitly codified as regulations for this specific exam context. The goal is to achieve a faster, more efficient application without compromising the underlying data structure or introducing vulnerabilities. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes efficient data retrieval through judicious use of server-side JavaScript, SSJS, within the before-page load event. This allows for prefetching and processing of necessary data before the page is fully rendered to the client. By performing these operations on the server, it minimizes the amount of client-side processing and reduces the number of round trips to the server, leading to a significantly improved user experience and application performance. This aligns with the general professional principle of optimizing resource utilization and delivering a responsive application. An incorrect approach that involves fetching all data directly within the onClient load event using client-side JavaScript is professionally unacceptable. This method leads to excessive client-side processing, potentially overwhelming the user's browser and causing delays or even application crashes. It also increases the likelihood of exposing sensitive data to the client unnecessarily. Another incorrect approach, Fetching data incrementally through multiple separate AJAX calls initiated by individual components on the page creates a chatty interface with numerous server round trips. This can lead to a fragmented user experience and increased server load, negating the benefits of efficiency. Finally, an approach that relies solely on client-side data manipulation after an initial large data fetch, without server-side optimization, still suffers from the initial performance bottleneck and can be inefficient for complex datasets. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the application's data requirements and user interaction patterns. They should then evaluate different data access strategies, considering server-side versus client-side processing, the impact on network traffic, and the potential for data exposure. Performance profiling and testing are crucial to validate the chosen approach. The principle of least privilege should be applied to data access, ensuring only necessary data is retrieved and processed. Question 13. The audit findings indicate that several custom Xpages components developed to extend the functionality of existing IBM Lotus notes and Domino 8.5 applications were deployed directly to production environments without undergoing a formal code review or comprehensive testing process. Which of the following approaches best addresses this audit finding and aligns with professional development best practices? Option A. Rely on end-user feedback and bug reporting mechanisms to identify and rectify issues in custom Xpages components after they have been deployed to production. Option B. Expedite the development cycle by allowing developers to deploy custom Xpages components directly to production as soon as they are functionally complete, with post-deployment checks performed only if critical issues arise. Option C. Implement a mandatory peer review process for all custom Xpages components, ensuring adherence to established coding standards and conducting thorough unit and integration testing before deployment. Option D. Focus solely on the functional requirements of custom Xpages components, assuming that if the component performs its intended task, it meets the necessary development standards. The correct answer is C. Implement a mandatory peer review process for all custom Xpages components, ensuring adherence to established coding standards and conducting thorough unit and integration testing before deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid application development and the need for robust security and data integrity, especially within the context of IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 applications using Xpages. The audit findings highlight a potential gap in how custom Xpages components are being integrated, which could expose the application to vulnerabilities or data corruption. Careful judgment is required to balance the desire for feature velocity with the imperative to adhere to established development and security best practices. The correct approach emphasizes a structured and documented review process for all custom Xpages components before deployment. This aligns with best practices for software development lifecycle management, which are implicitly supported by the principles of maintaining application integrity and security. By requiring peer review, adherence to coding standards, and thorough testing, this approach ensures that custom components are not only functional but also secure, maintainable, and compliant with any internal or external governance policies. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of introducing defects or security flaws, thereby safeguarding the application and its data. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal review and testing for custom Xpages components is professionally unacceptable. This failure to implement due diligence directly contravenes the principles of responsible software development. It creates a significant risk of introducing security vulnerabilities, such as cross-site scripting XSS or injection attacks, which could compromise sensitive data. Furthermore, it increases the likelihood of functional bugs and performance issues, leading to application instability and user frustration. From a regulatory or ethical standpoint, this approach demonstrates a disregard for due care and professional responsibility, potentially leading to data breaches, financial losses, and reputational damage for the organization. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on end-user feedback for identifying issues in custom Xpages components is also professionally deficient. While user feedback is valuable for usability and feature enhancement, it is an insufficient mechanism for ensuring the technical soundness and security of custom code. This approach outsources critical quality assurance and security validation to users who may not possess the technical expertise to identify underlying code-level problems. This can lead to the deployment of insecure or unstable components, as subtle but critical flaws might go unnoticed until a significant incident occurs. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. Developers and project managers must understand the potential impact of custom components on application security, data integrity, and performance. Implementing a tiered review process, where the rigor of review and testing is proportional to the complexity and criticality of the custom component, is a sound strategy. This involves defining clear coding standards, establishing a peer review process, conducting thorough unit and integration testing, and potentially incorporating automated security scanning tools. Prioritizing security and quality from the outset, rather than treating it as an afterthought, is crucial for building reliable and trustworthy Xpages applications. Question 14. Implementation of a data retrieval mechanism in an Xpages application for IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8. 5. Where user access to specific document fields is determined by their role within the application, requires careful consideration of how Xpages interacts with the Domino data store's security. Which of the following approaches best balances performance, security, and maintainability within the Domino 8.5 framework? Option A. Employing a generic manager role in the Domino ACL that grants broad access to all users designated as managers, regardless of their specific functional responsibilities. Option B. Storing sensitive data in a separate, less secure database and linking to it from the main application, assuming this simplifies access control management. Option C. Utilizing Xpages' built-in data binding and component properties to dynamically control field visibility and editability based on the current user's roles, leveraging Domino's ACL and security context. Option D. Implementing custom JavaScript code within the Xpage to directly query and filter document data, bypassing Domino's native access control mechanisms to improve retrieval speed. The correct answer is C. Utilizing Xpages' built-in data binding and component properties to dynamically control field visibility and editability based on the current user's roles, leveraging Domino's ACL and security context. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in balancing the need for efficient data retrieval with the imperative to maintain data integrity and security within a Lotus Notes/Domino 8.5 environment using Xpages. Developers must consider how Xpages, as a modern web application development framework, interacts with the underlying Domino data store and its inherent security models. The challenge lies in selecting an Xpages data access strategy that is both performant for end users and compliant with established Domino security best practices and the principles of least privilege, which are implicitly governed by the exam's focus on application development within that specific IBM ecosystem. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it leverages Xpages' capabilities to interact with the Domino data store in a controlled and secure manner. By utilizing the built-in security features of Domino, such as access control lists ACL, and the security context of the current user, developers ensure that data access is governed by established policies. This approach aligns with the principle of least privilege, where users and applications are granted only the necessary permissions to perform their functions, thereby minimizing the risk of unauthorized data access or modification. Furthermore, it promotes maintainability and adherence to the architectural patterns expected within the Lotus Notes/Domino platform. An incorrect approach that bypasses Domino's native security mechanisms, such as directly accessing data without considering user roles or permissions, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to unauthorized data exposure, violating data privacy principles and potentially contravening internal company policies or industry standards for data handling. Another incorrect approach, such as hard-coding credentials or using overly broad access rights, creates security vulnerabilities. This is a failure in due diligence and professional responsibility, as it exposes the application and the data to undue risk. Such practices undermine the trust placed in the developer to build secure and reliable applications. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the application's requirements, the sensitivity of the data being accessed, and the security model of the underlying platform. Developers should always prioritize solutions that integrate seamlessly with the platform's security features. Before implementing any data access strategy, a risk assessment should be conducted, considering potential vulnerabilities and the impact of a security breach. Consulting with security administrators and adhering to established development guidelines are crucial steps in ensuring a secure and compliant application. Question 15. Stakeholder feedback indicates that users find the current data entry process for customer contact information in the Domino application to be clunky and slow, and they want a more modern way to input this data, especially on mobile devices. The development team needs to decide on the best initial approach to address this feedback. Option A. Implement a new mobile-first responsive design for the existing forms, assuming that a visual refresh will be sufficient to address the user feedback without altering the underlying data entry logic. Option B. Develop a series of Xpages components that dynamically adapt to screen size, allowing for a streamlined, single-page data entry form with inline validation and auto-completion suggestions for common fields. Option C. Immediately begin refactoring the existing Domino database views and forms to incorporate more advanced JavaScript for client-side validation and data manipulation, assuming this will address the clunky feel. Option D. Schedule a series of workshops with key stakeholders to gather specific examples of clunky interactions and slow input, and then create detailed wireframes and interactive prototypes of proposed solutions for their review before any coding begins. The correct answer is B. Develop a series of Xpages components that dynamically adapt to screen size, allowing for a streamlined, single-page data entry form with inline validation and auto-completion suggestions for common fields. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing user experience with data integrity and security, particularly when dealing with sensitive information. The professional challenge lies in interpreting vague stakeholder feedback and translating it into concrete technical requirements that adhere to best practices and potential, though not explicitly stated in this exam's scope, data protection principles. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for misinterpretation to lead to insecure or inefficient application design. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured and iterative process for requirement gathering and validation. By breaking down the feedback into actionable user stories and then prototyping, the development team can visually demonstrate functionality and gather precise feedback before committing to complex code. This iterative refinement ensures that the final application meets user needs effectively and efficiently, minimizing rework and potential security vulnerabilities introduced by assumptions. This aligns with general software development best practices that emphasize user-centric design and early validation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate implementation without clarification risks building features that are not aligned with the true intent of the stakeholder, leading to wasted development effort and potential rework. This can indirectly lead to security issues if assumptions about data handling are made incorrectly. Another incorrect approach that involves extensive, unvalidated technical design based on ambiguous feedback is also professionally unacceptable. This bypasses crucial user validation steps, increasing the likelihood of developing a solution that doesn't solve the actual problem or introduces unnecessary complexity and potential security gaps. It fails to demonstrate due diligence in understanding the business need before technical execution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Active listening and clarification of ambiguous feedback. 2. Decomposing feedback into granular, testable requirements, e.g., user stories. 3. Employing rapid prototyping or wireframing to visualize proposed solutions. 4. Conducting iterative feedback sessions with stakeholders to validate understanding and design choices. 5. Prioritizing security and data integrity considerations throughout the development lifecycle, even when not explicitly mandated by specific regulations within the exam scope. Question 16. Operational review demonstrates that a critical Xpage application, designed to display a large and frequently updated dataset, is experiencing significant performance degradation, leading to slow load times and unresponsiveness for end users. The current implementation fetches all data from the underlying Domino database and then attempts to filter and display it within the Xpage. Developers are considering various strategies to improve the application's speed and user experience. Which of the following approaches is the most effective and professionally sound method for addressing this performance issue within the context of Xpages and advanced techniques? Option A. Implement server-side JavaScript (SSJS) to pre-process and filter the data on the server before binding it to the Xpage data source, thereby reducing the amount of data transferred and processed client-side. Option B. Rely exclusively on client-side JavaScript libraries to perform all data filtering and manipulation after the entire dataset has been loaded into the browser. Option C. Refactor the Xpage to use a simpler, less data-intensive view and accept the performance limitations of displaying large datasets. Option D. Increase the server's allocated memory and processing power to handle the increased load of fetching and processing all data on the client. The correct answer is A. Implement server-side JavaScript (SSJS) to pre-process and filter the data on the server before binding it to the Xpage data source, thereby reducing the amount of data transferred and processed client-side. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing performance optimization with maintainability and adherence to best practices. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and sustainable solution without introducing unintended side effects or violating the principles of good Xpages development. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that not only addresses the immediate performance concern, but also aligns with long-term application health and the specific guidelines relevant to the C2040-986 exam. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the root cause of the performance issue by optimizing the data retrieval mechanism within the Xpage. By leveraging server-side JavaScript (SSJS) to fetch data and then binding it to the data source, developers ensure that the data is processed efficiently before being presented to the user. This method minimizes the client-side processing load, which is often a bottleneck in complex Xpages applications. It aligns with the exam's focus on advanced techniques by demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of data handling and performance tuning within the Xpages framework. This approach promotes cleaner code, better resource utilization, and a more responsive user experience, all of which are hallmarks of professional application development. An incorrect approach that involves fetching all data on the client side and then attempting to filter it within the Xpage would be professionally unacceptable. This would lead to significant performance degradation, especially with larger datasets, as the browser would be burdened with processing and filtering a massive amount of information. It would also increase the likelihood of browser crashes and a poor user experience, directly contradicting the goals of efficient application design. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on client-side JavaScript libraries for data manipulation without considering the initial data retrieval efficiency, would also be flawed. While client-side libraries can be useful, they are not a substitute for optimizing the data fetching process itself. If the initial data load is inefficient, even the most optimized client-side manipulation will struggle. This approach fails to address the core performance bottleneck. A third incorrect approach, which might involve simply increasing server resources without addressing the application's code, is a temporary and unsustainable solution. While it might mask the performance issue in the short term, it does not resolve the underlying inefficiency in the Xpage data handling. This is akin to treating a symptom rather than the disease and can lead to escalating infrastructure costs without a corresponding improvement in application performance or user satisfaction. The professional reasoning process for this situation involves a systematic evaluation of the problem. First, identify the symptoms of poor performance. Second, hypothesize potential causes, considering both client-side and server-side factors. Third, research and evaluate different solutions based on their efficiency, maintainability, and alignment with best practices. Fourth, select the solution that offers the most robust and sustainable improvement. Finally, implement and test the chosen solution thoroughly to ensure it resolves the issue without introducing new problems. This methodical approach, grounded in understanding the Xpages framework and its performance characteristics, is crucial for effective application development. Question 17. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new Xpage feature, while technically sophisticated and offering potential efficiency gains, requires a significant shift in user interaction patterns and has a higher resource footprint. The development team has the capacity to implement this feature fully and immediately. What is the most professionally responsible approach to introducing this new functionality? Option A. Deploy the new Xpage feature to all users immediately, assuming they will adapt quickly to the new interaction patterns and that any performance issues will be minor. Option B. Postpone the implementation of the new Xpage feature indefinitely, citing the potential for user disruption and resource strain, and reevaluate in a future development cycle. Option C. Prioritize the immediate implementation of the new Xpage feature due to its technical merit, and address any user adoption or performance issues as they arise. Option D. Implement the new Xpage feature for a select pilot group of users first, gather feedback, and iterate on the design and performance before a wider rollout. The correct answer is D. Implement the new Xpage feature for a select pilot group of users first, gather feedback, and iterate on the design and performance before a wider rollout. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing the desire for cutting-edge features with the practicalities of user adoption and system stability. The professional challenge lies in making a decision that is technically sound, aligns with business objectives, and adheres to the principles of good application design and deployment, all within the context of the C2040-986 exam's focus on Xpages and advanced domino techniques. The need to consider user impact, potential performance degradation, and the learning curve associated with new technologies requires careful judgment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased rollout and thorough testing. This aligns with established software development lifecycle principles, emphasizing risk mitigation and user feedback. By introducing the new Xpage functionality to a pilot group first, the development team can identify and address any unforeseen issues, performance bottlenecks, or usability concerns in a controlled environment. This iterative approach minimizes the risk of widespread disruption to the user base and allows for refinement of the solution before a full deployment. This is crucial for maintaining user trust and ensuring the application continues to deliver value. An incorrect approach that immediately deploys the new functionality to all users without prior testing or a pilot phase represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. From a professional standpoint, this demonstrates a disregard for user experience and potential system instability. It could lead to widespread user frustration, decreased productivity, and a loss of confidence in the application and the development team. Ethically, it fails to uphold the responsibility to deliver a reliable and functional product. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the technical elegance of the new Xpage feature without considering its practical application or user impact, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of holistic thinking, prioritizing theoretical achievement over real-world utility. It can lead to the development of features that are technically impressive but ultimately unused or unhelpful, wasting development resources and failing to meet business needs. Finally, an approach that delays the implementation of the new Xpage functionality indefinitely due to minor perceived risks, without a clear plan for mitigation or reevaluation, is also a failure. This can lead to missed opportunities for innovation and competitive advantage. Professionally, it indicates a lack of proactive problem solving and a failure to adapt to evolving technological landscapes and user expectations. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment, clear communication with stakeholders, and a phased implementation strategy. This includes defining clear success criteria for pilot programs, establishing feedback mechanisms, and having contingency plans in place. Professionals should always strive to balance innovation with stability, user needs with technical feasibility, and short-term gains with long-term maintainability. Question 18. Investigation of a Lotus Note/Domino 8.5 application built with Xpages reveals significant slowdowns when users access a particular data-intensive section. The application relies heavily on domino views to present and filter data. The development team suspects the issue stems from how data is being fetched and displayed, impacting user productivity. What is the most effective and professionally sound approach to diagnose and resolve this performance bottleneck? Option A. Recommend an immediate upgrade of the Domino server hardware, including additional RAM and faster processors, to accommodate the perceived increased load. Option B. Analyze the design and indexing of the Domino views used by the Xpages application, ensuring they are optimized for the specific data retrieval patterns and that relevant fields are indexed. Option C. Introduce client-side JavaScript caching mechanisms to store large datasets locally, minimizing server requests without a defined cache invalidation strategy. Option D. Implement extensive data denormalization across all related document types to reduce the need for complex view lookups. The correct answer is B. Analyze the design and indexing of the Domino views used by the Xpages application, ensuring they are optimized for the specific data retrieval patterns and that relevant fields are indexed. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing user experience and data integrity with the need for efficient data retrieval. The developer is tasked with optimizing a complex Xpages application that experiences performance degradation due to the way data is fetched. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the performance issue and implementing a solution that not only improves speed, but also adheres to best practices for data handling within the Lotus Notes/Domino environment, specifically concerning the efficient use of views and their indexing. The pressure to deliver a functional and performant application without compromising data accuracy or introducing new vulnerabilities adds to the complexity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of how Xpages interacts with Domino views and the underlying data. Optimizing view indexing is a fundamental technique for improving query performance in Domino. By ensuring that views are properly indexed and that the queries within Xpages are designed to leverage these indexes effectively, the application can significantly reduce the time required to retrieve data. This aligns with the principles of efficient database design and application performance tuning, which are implicitly expected in professional development. It demonstrates a proactive approach to identifying and resolving performance bottlenecks at the data access layer, which is often the most impactful area for optimization. This method is considered best professional practice because it addresses the core of the performance issue directly and sustainably, without resorting to superficial fixes. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to simply increase server resources, e.g., more RAM, faster CPU. While this might offer a temporary or marginal improvement, it fails to address the underlying inefficiency in data retrieval. It's akin to treating a symptom rather than the disease. This approach is professionally unacceptable because it is a costly and often ineffective solution that doesn't resolve the fundamental problem of poorly optimized data access. It also ignores the specific capabilities of the Domino platform for efficient data querying. Another incorrect approach would be to denormalize the data extensively or duplicate data across multiple documents to avoid complex view queries. While denormalization can sometimes improve read performance, excessive duplication can lead to data inconsistency issues, increased storage requirements, and more complex update logic. This approach is professionally flawed because it prioritizes read speed over data integrity and maintainability, which are critical aspects of robust application development. It introduces significant risks of data corruption and makes future modifications more difficult and error-prone. A third incorrect approach might be to implement client-side caching of large datasets without a clear strategy for cache invalidation. While client-side caching can speed up perceived performance by reducing server round trips, if not managed correctly, it can lead to users viewing stale or outdated data. This is a significant ethical and professional failure, as it can lead to incorrect business decisions based on inaccurate information. It also doesn't address the server-side performance issue of fetching the data in the first place. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach performance optimization by first profiling the application to identify the specific areas of slowness. In the context of Xpages and Domino, this often points to data retrieval. The next step is to analyze how data is being accessed or views being used efficiently. Are queries optimized? Understanding the data model and the relationships between documents is crucial. The decision-making process should prioritize solutions that enhance performance by improving the efficiency of data access mechanisms, such as optimizing view design and indexing, rather than resorting to brute force hardware upgrades or compromising data integrity through excessive denormalization or poor caching strategies. A systematic, data-driven approach that considers the long-term maintainability and accuracy of the application is paramount. Question 19. What factors determine the most secure and efficient method for retrieving and displaying data from an external data source within an IBM Lotus Notes and Domino 8.5 Xpages application, considering the need to protect sensitive information and maintain application integrity? Option A. Embedding connection strings and credentials for the external data source directly within the client-side JavaScript code of the Xpage. Option B. Relying on third-party browser extensions or client-side plugins to fetch and display data from the external source within the Xpage. Option C. Directly querying the external data source using client-side JavaScript embedded within the Xpage HTML or SSJS components. Option D. Utilizing server-side JavaScript or Java code within Xpages to access the data source, processing and filtering it on the server before rendering it on the client. Correct answer is D. Utilizing server-side JavaScript or Java code within Xpages to access the data source, processing and filtering it on the server before rendering it on the client. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in Xpages development, where a developer needs to integrate external data sources into a Domino application. The professional challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate and secure method for data retrieval, considering performance, maintainability, and adherence to best practices for data access within the Domino environment. The need to avoid direct database access from the client side for sensitive data is paramount, as it exposes the application to security vulnerabilities and bypasses server-side validation and business logic. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging server-side data access mechanisms within Xpages. This typically means using SSJS, server-side JavaScript, or Java code executed on the Domino server to interact with the data source. This ensures that sensitive data remains protected, business logic is consistently applied, and the application adheres to the principle of least privilege. By fetching data on the server and then passing only the necessary, potentially transformed, data to the client, the developer maintains control over data exposure and integrity. This aligns with the security and architectural principles inherent in Domino application development, where server-side processing is the standard for data manipulation and retrieval. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to directly query the Domino database from the client side using JavaScript within an Xpage. This is a significant security risk, as it exposes the database directly to the end user's browser, potentially allowing unauthorized access to data or even modification if not carefully controlled. It bypasses server-side security checks and business rules, leading to data integrity issues. Another incorrect approach would be to embed sensitive connection details or credentials directly within client-side JavaScript code. This is a critical security lapse, as these credentials would be visible to anyone inspecting the browser's source code, compromising the entire data source. A third incorrect approach might be to rely on client-side plugins or browser extensions to fetch data. While this might seem like a shortcut, it introduces external dependencies, reduces control over the data retrieval process, and can lead to compatibility issues and security vulnerabilities that are difficult to manage and audit within the Domino framework. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach data integration by first understanding the data source's sensitivity and the application's security requirements. They should then evaluate available Xpages and Domino server-side capabilities for data access. The decision-making process should prioritize security, performance, and maintainability. Server-side data retrieval using SSJS or Java is generally the most robust and secure method. Developers should consult IBM's documentation and best practices for Xpages and Domino development to ensure they are implementing data access in a compliant and secure manner. Question 20. When evaluating the performance of an Xpages application or a specific user action triggers a time-consuming server-side data retrieval and processing task, leading to UI unresponsiveness, which of the following approaches best addresses the issue while maintaining a positive user experience and adhering to Xpages development best practices? Option A. Execute the long-running server-side operation directly within a client-side dojo. XHR call without any specific server-side Xpages event handling. Option B. Trigger the server-side data retrieval and processing directly within a standard XP event handler without any asynchronous considerations. Option C. Implement the server-side data retrieval and processing logic within a method called by an XP. Event handler configured with client-side only equals true, and specifying the action attribute to execute the server-side method. Option D. Create a client-side JavaScript loop that repeatedly polls a server-side endpoint for the completion status of the long-running operation. The correct answer is C. Implement the server-side data retrieval and processing logic within a method called by an XP. Event handler configured with client-side only equals true, and specifying the action attribute to execute the server-side method. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in application development, balancing performance optimization with maintainability and adherence to best practices. The developer is tasked with improving the responsiveness of an Xpages application, a critical aspect for user experience and productivity. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that is effective without introducing technical debt or violating established development guidelines. The correct approach involves leveraging the inherent capabilities of Xpages for asynchronous processing, specifically by utilizing the XP event handler with client-side only equals true, an action attribute pointing to a server-side method. This allows the user interface to remain responsive while the potentially time-consuming operation executes on the server. This aligns with best practices for Xpages development, promoting a non-blocking user experience and efficient resource utilization. It avoids unnecessary complexity and directly addresses the performance bottleneck in a controlled manner. An incorrect approach would be to perform long-running operations directly within a dojo. XHR call initiated from the client without proper server-side management. This could lead to the browser freezing or becoming unresponsive, negatively impacting user experience and potentially causing data inconsistencies if not handled with extreme care. It bypasses the structured asynchronous processing mechanisms provided by Xpages, making the application harder to debug and maintain. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a client-side JavaScript loop to poll for results from a server-side process. While this might seem like a way to avoid a frozen UI, it is inefficient, consumes unnecessary server resources, and introduces significant complexity in managing the polling logic and synchronizing results. It's a workaround that doesn't leverage the framework's strengths and can lead to race conditions and other subtle bugs. Finally, attempting to execute the entire long-running operation synchronously within a standard XP event handler without considering its impact on the UI thread is fundamentally flawed. This will inevitably lead to the application becoming unresponsive, directly contradicting the goal of improving performance and user experience. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of how Xpages handles user interactions and server-side processing. The professional decision-making process for such situations involves 1. Understanding the core problem. Identify the specific operation causing the performance issue. 2. Consulting the framework's capabilities. Explore Xpages features designed for asynchronous operations and non-blocking UI. 3. Prioritizing user experience. Ensure the application remains responsive during operations. 4. Adhering to best practices. Select solutions that promote maintainability, scalability, and testability. 5. Evaluating trade-offs. Consider the complexity, resource usage, and potential side effects of each approach.